NBC 10 News Today continues.
Well, this morning we have a special guest, Dr. Jason Maljaars. He's a neurologist, and we're going to talk about nutritional brain health, and he's going to be joining us on the show to give us some information, and we're really excited to have you on. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, absolutely. So we're going to be talking a lot about, dementia and Alzheimer's, and can you tell us first what is dementia and what's kind of the relation? Because I told you, I feel like I hear people use them interchangeably, so can you give us like a specific definition on that?
Yes, yeah, a lot of people are confused between dementia and Alzheimer's. So dementia is a kind of an umbrella term.
Okay.
And it is not a specific disease. It is a description of kind of the symptoms of what's going on, manifesting from something going on in the brain. So, and Alzheimer's is the most common form of dementia. About 70% of all dementias are Alzheimer's. So that's why we kind of use them interchangeably.
Okay.
But dementia means that your cognitive ability, so your brain's ability to remember things, to navigate through space, to make good decisions, etc., starts to kind of deteriorate to the point where it's negatively impacting your life. That's the definition of dementia. And Alzheimer's refers to the specifics of what's actually happening in the brain.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Interesting.
Okay,
Yeah.
learn something new every day.
I know. It's interesting to hear kind of the distinction between it, because I do feel like a lot of people don't know. I wasn't sure.
I don't know either. So what are some of the symptoms? Can you elaborate more on the symptoms of dementia?
Yeah, so there's different ways this can manifest, but the classic story, for example, if a concerned family member brings someone to me in my clinic and says, this is what I'm noticing, and we ultimately lead to a diagnosis of dementia, this is the typical story. Things start very kind of subtly, and there's like, you just asked me that question 5 minutes ago. You don't remember that,
Yeah.
Or so and so got lost, on the way home from where they go all the time, and they're just sort of a familiar street that they got a little bit lost, or just these little things. And I always want to emphasize to people who are very concerned, like everybody has those kind of moments here and there, and that's totally fine. But where you start to see a pattern, that's ultimately what somebody will want to go to the physician and say, I see a pattern of lapses in memory usually, and sometimes that decision you made was maybe not the best decision, and sort of this gradual but progressive process over time.
Yeah, that makes sense. And what are some of the treatment options, or maybe that treatment that you commonly use for dementia?
Yeah, so one of the things, dementia is so common, it affects about 7 million people right now, and it's only going to increase with our aging population.
Yeah.
And it's such a dismal prognosis, it's such a terrible condition because there is effectively no treatment. There is no way to, at least from the sort of pharmaceutical kind of mainstream way of treating diseases, there's no option that we have that actually makes people better. The absolute best thing that we have got to from the pharmaceutical side is some of these newer drugs that have come out in the last couple of years that some people will get worse a little bit less quickly than other people.
Okay.
And that's kind of what we define as success. So there really isn't a treatment option from the pharmaceutical side as it stands right now.
Yeah, so it's kind of more of a preventing the worst case scenario almost.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe. And even then, with the treatment, that worst case is still ultimately going to come. So, there's such a need for some way to make a difference in this kind of condition. And again, it's not going to come, I don't think, at least exclusively from the pharmaceutical side of things.
Well, is there a way to reduce the effects of dementia?
Yeah, so that is one of the things that I have people come to me all the time and they say, I'm 65 and my mother had dementia, and I'm so scared that I might be getting something, because the other day I forgot, my cousin's dog's name or something small. I'm thinking, okay, you don't have to just sit there and kind of wait for this disease to take you over. It's not a sort of luck of the draw or an inevitability thing. You just have to kind of be passive about it. There really is, a strategy, a way to go about reducing your risk. It's a very complex thing that's happening in the brain, but in the lifestyles that we live in, in Western culture, typically, they're very unhealthy, right? And the biggest thing of all is what we eat, what we're putting in our bodies. How does that affect our health overall? How does that affect our brain, which is particularly sensitive? And so getting at sort of the idea of putting things in our bodies, paying attention to what we're doing, in that regard is, I think, and has been even shown, in some good studies so far, to be a way not only to reduce your risk, but even if you're starting to develop some symptoms, to actually, give you some better days.
Yeah, I know we talked about the overarching is like the nutritional brain health. So how does that relate? What's the relationship between our dietary or nutrition with dementia, or ways to reduce our risk? What's the relationship there?
Yeah, so the relationship is a very, obviously you can imagine there's a lot of complex, details that go into that. But the general idea is our brains are really sensitive to the kind of the health of the environment that they exist in. So our brains are very aware. If, for example, are we getting proper sleep? Are we chronically stressed? Are we eating healthy, or are we eating unhealthily? Are we getting other toxins in our environment, whether it's through our household cleaners or whether it's through mold in our, in our walls, that kind of thing. And all these things together, our brain kind of pays attention to that. And basically, on average, if that environment is unhealthy and suboptimal for brain health, the brain will start to go into kind of a protective mode. And by doing that, it has to sacrifice some of these higher level functions that require a lot of energy, like making new memories, or navigating your way through, space, et cetera. It'll have to sacrifice those because it can no longer maintain that level of function, because it's just not in a healthy enough environment. And so the key then is, okay, in each individual person, what are the factors in your life that are negatively impacting your brain health, and how can we optimize those to either reduce your risk of developing, Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia, or even make your symptoms that you're currently having a little better.
Yeah, and I like how you said earlier, we don't have to just sit and wait for it to get back, because there's lots of things that we can even do now to, for in the future. And I like that. That's interesting, because I feel like I don't hear that a lot. It's kind of like you wait until someone's really, really in a page where everybody's really urgent.
And me and you, we're still kind of like young. Yeah. So we don't really think about that stuff at all.
Yeah. So I think this is so interesting and very, very helpful. And I'm very glad that you're here with us today. And like I said, we're going to continue talking about this with Dr. Jason Maljaars. It's going to be a lot of fun and very, very interesting. And I'm glad. Thank you for coming to educate us, our viewers, and also what we can do to kind of get ready for that as we go through our lives. So thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. All right, stick around, guys. We'll be right back after the break.